Latvia Weekly presents the 2019 Līgo Jāņi Midsummer Special with Joe Horgan and Austra Apsīte. Latvian VCM, and welcome to not only a very exciting interview episode of Latvia Weekly, but also our Līgo Jāņi 2019 special. I am your host, Joe Horgan, and I'm joined by Austra Apsīte, who is not only a very well-versed person in Līgo and Midsummer traditions, or Jāņi, as she told me was the correct way to say it just a minute ago, but also was one of my former students a very long time ago. And I don't know if she remembers this, but your class was actually, I think, the very first one I ever taught when I first came to Latvia. I didn't have you normally, but I was substituting for your teacher. Yeah, you're looking at me like you don't remember this.
I didn't know that I was the first one, because you were just substituting and we were writing a test.
Yes, so that's a great first impression, I'm sure. But anyway, so we are here today to talk about one of the most important days of the year. And for a lot of people, I feel like in Latvia, it is the most important day of the year. And in America, we usually look forward to Christmas. That's the big thing. For younger people, Halloween has kind of become the big day that people look forward to. People will have, 3 or 4 costumes, sometimes even for like the weekend before Halloween, the weekend after Halloween. But when I first came to Latvia about 6 years ago, everybody was already talking about Jāņi. Oh, you have to see Jāņi. You have to go to Līgo. You have to see Midsummer. So I'm sure some of you out there who have been here for a short amount of time, or maybe haven't been to Latvia yet, but are interested in Latvia, have heard a lot about this holiday. Austra, can you give a very brief background of what is this big celebration, this big holiday that everybody is so excited about?
So I'm going to try to give at least my understanding of it and my side of it, because as this is a very, very old tradition, there are a lot of kind of different ways to explain it. There's a lot of layers to it. So for one thing, why we celebrate it at exactly that day is because that's the longest day and the shortest night.
And that day, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is June 23rd into June 24th.
I actually think that those exact dates only started to be relevant in the last century, because before that, they didn't that much follow the calendars as they did just look at the sun and see when it's longest. For example, this year, I think actually the first time it's the longest day is on 20th, because they vary, they change from year to year. And 24th, I think, just became, and 23rd, so relevant when there were official jobs and official vacations and things like that. I would like to start with the mythological side of it, which is something that my mother and my family have explained to me, and what I have come into understanding later on. The idea is, first of all, I think you could translate it as the feast of fertility, because that's the bloom of the year, that's the top. Everything is blooming in the fields, and so that's the day when, with all the rituals, you're trying to get more fertility for the meadows, for your crops, for animals, and also for humans. So there's a lot of rituals that are around that. Another side of it is still believed, and mythologically, that that's the day when all the gates are open, all the gates for the good side, all the gates for the bad ones. So all the spirits are here in our realm, So that's the most also dangerous time of the year, because the good part has not come into their full power, and there's really nothing there's not a gate between like the bad spirits and the good spirits. So it's believed that there's a lot of warlocks and witches and spirits roaming around. So you need to put a lot of protection over yourself. So I think those are actually traditions that have come from the olden days, that a lot of people don't know why they do it, but they still do it, like flower crowns. You have to put flower crowns on you because that's a closed circle and you're protecting yourself, so your energy cannot get out. That's why also traditionally you would put such herbs in it, like thistle and nettle, because they are sharp, so you would be protected. So the flower crown is one way to put up protection. Another way is that they used to put a lot of sharp objects around, like knives and everything. So, so witches would get stuck on them. Also, another interesting tradition is that you have to put the mountain ash tree around your house. That is because the berry has a little crust on it. And when it's oblique, it's one of the simpler signs of Mara, which is one of the most powerful goddesses in Latvian mythology. Oh, and you have to, when you take it in your home, you have to take it walking backwards and holding it by the top instead of the trunk, as you would usually. And that, I think, is because then your footprints get swept away, so no one can follow you. So there's a lot of other that I'm not going to really talk about right now, traditions about protecting yourself, because there's a lot of the bad spirits, but also there's a lot of the good spirits that you can. So that's the time that you can get the most good out of, but also you're the most vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that would be the first part, and then the second part that is really traditional that everyone does, even if they have no idea what Jāņi is. It's the fire, that you have to have a fire, and that came to be again because of the spirits and everything, that you need to keep the light from the sunset till dawn. So you would, first of all, you try to put it on the highest place that you have in your. Whenever you're celebrating. For example, we have a hill that we call Jāņa Hill, when we always put the fire on. In Zemgale, as you know, there's no hills at all. Mm-hmm. It's completely flat. So there's a tradition to take like kind of this tree trunk and put the fire on top of it, or just something so it would be really high, because then it has the biggest circle of light around it. And you would have to light it at the exact same moment that the sun is setting. And then you need to keep the fire alive until the dawn of the sun. Mm-hmm. And if we have started talking about fire, usually you would have to have 2 fireplaces, because the first one that you light when the sun is setting, that's a ritual fire. So it's sacred, so you cannot make sausages there or bake anything or burn anything that you don't want to sacrifice to the fire. And when I say sacrifice, I do not mean animals or humans or something like that. Actually, from Latvian, the word is ziedot, which originates from the word flower. Mm-hmm. So, it's not that brutal.
It's kind of like more, I think the direct translation in English is more like donate or something like that.
I guess, donate.
Yeah. But it doesn't sound as correct, like donate to the fire. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's like
sounds like charity, but it's not. So yeah, that's like the ritual fire that you do, all the donate, sacrificing rituals and everything, mm-hmm. And then you would have another fire that you can do whatever you would normally do with fire. Mm-hmm. Oh, also another interesting tradition that is also so you would be protected from the bad things, is that there happens this kind of a song off, mm-hmm. or song war, where there's 2 sides and they improvise on the spot, giving the traditional melodies that we have, and they would sing bad stuff and actually mostly not true stuff about the other side, and then they would answer, and no one takes this seriously or to heart, but it was believed that if you say the bad stuff, then it's not going to happen to that person. I think it's actually also the reason why Latvians are so bad at telling compliments and receiving them, because it just seems like jinxing it. So yeah, they just say all the bad stuff so it wouldn't happen to the other side. So
this is kind of like a traditional Latvian rap battle or something like that.
Yeah, it actually is. It's so fun when you get into it. It's one of my favorite parts of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. But does this ever, because I've never done this before in any of the Jāņis I've gotten into, can this ever turn into like some kind of passive aggressive, like, you're saying something, you're pretending not to mean it, but you actually are, and then it can get a little bit nasty? And have you ever seen that happen, I guess, at Jāņi, like two people?
No, actually I haven't for some reason. I don't know. I think no one is really saying the true stuff that you would mm-hmm. not like about someone else. Yeah. It just usually turns into laughing out loud and
you never do the dishes. It's never that.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. No. Fingers crossed it doesn't happen this year.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, and you have to sing a lot in this event, mm-hmm. just because I don't know, we're Latvians and we sing a lot. We put everything into song, and there's song for the way that you're making the flower crowns, for the way that you're making food, just everything.
So I have personally been to, I think, 3 of my friends' like Jāņi celebrations. I also went to one in Riga Center, which I was very, very impressed by. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I was very, very impressed. But I will say that out of all the Jāņi celebrations I went to, so the only thing that you've mentioned so far is the fire. Because, of course, we have a fire. Now, my friends aren't quite as into the traditional scene as you are, because Austra has been very active, and she'll talk about this a little bit later, very active in Latvia's kind of cultural scene, and has been really her entire life, as her entire family, really. But I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask you is there like a correct way to celebrate Jāņi? Because we, haven't really done these different traditions. It's been a lot more of kind of, singing, yes, but also a lot of kind of just grilling meat, spending time by the fire. It's kind of like, I think with Christmas, there's some people who do some of the older Christmas traditions and some people who use it just as a time to, spend with their family. What do you think, as somebody who's more on the kind of cultural side? Is there some kind of correct way to celebrate it, incorrect way to celebrate Jāņi?
There's a lot of room for improvisation with it, because even the traditions that I have said, that's just the top of it. There's a lot of layers and it gets deeper and deeper. I just think that there's a line after which you're not really celebrating Jāņa, but you're just celebrating summer. Mm-hmm. So I think there is a difference if you're celebrating the mythological and folklore side of it, or just celebrating. I think the core of it would be the flower crowns and the fire. If I would have to choose two, I would say that those are the most important thing.
Okay, so that's good. So at least we've had the flower crowns and the fires. I do have to say, I am incredibly impressed about two things when it comes to Latvians in general. Okay, and I don't like to talk in stereotypes, but I am going to talk in stereotypes for 1 minute. I am impressed by how, first of all, everybody in Latvia can dance. Everybody I've met, every single person who goes, oh no, I can't dance, I'm terrible at dancing, well, they'll all of a sudden, like, okay, fine, and like start swinging around in some ways that I can't possibly imagine. I think that
everyone can dance. People just are afraid of it.
No, not everybody can dance, at least not where I'm from. But the other thing I'm impressed by is how everybody can make unbelievable flower crowns. At least everybody I've met, like, oh, I haven't done this in so long. And then all of a sudden you'll have this like beautiful thing in front of you. Like, this looks professional. I mean, you were just in the meadow for a couple of minutes. You picked a few wildflowers and then you have this professional crown. So is that something that just your kind of older relatives teach you? Or do you have some class in school that teaches you that?
We do not have a class in school, no. I don't know. I remember I do remember the first time that I had to make my own flower crown, because when I was a kid, my mom made it for me, and then one year she didn't have time, so she said that I have to make it my own. Mm-hmm. I don't know, you just learn it as you go along. First time it's probably going to take a longer time, and then it just goes quicker and quicker. Yeah, I don't know, it's something that you have to learn by doing. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone's that you meet are so good because they have been doing this for their whole lives. So
flower crowns are generally, I've seen really only women wear flower crowns. For guys, there is oak crowns. I've seen, oak crowns. And I have to ask you about this because one of my good friends, his name is David. Hi, David, if you're listening right now. He was once wearing an oak crown, and he was in Riga somewhere. And this guy came up to him and was very, very angry because he said, my name's Jānis, my father's Jānis, my son's Jānis. You're only allowed to wear an oak crown if your name is Jānis. And then, like a bunch of people who were with my friend kind of said, okay, just, get lost, dude. So is this a thing? Are you only allowed to wear the oak crowns if your name is Jānis, or is this just for all guys? I think there's a misconception with the word Jānis, because there's also, in the songs, you always sing Jāņa bērni, which means Jāņa children, and there's Jāņa tēvs, which is Jāņa father. But Jānis is somehow a god. So everyone is their children, and when you go to someone to celebrate, the host is gonna be Jānis. Even if his name is not Jānis, he's Jānis. So I'm afraid that guy wasn't wrong there. Yeah. Well, you don't have to apologize. I don't think that guy's listening to the show right now. And the reason why you have to wear an oak tree crown is because oak in general in Latvian mythology is kind of representative of a man. And then linden tree is a representative of a woman. And then you wear it because it's very strong, because it's grand, it's great, it lives much longer than humans do. So you would get all the strength from the tree. So that's why you put the crown on the men. And then the women have the flowers, so they would be blossoming and yeah. So And about the flower crowns for a second too, I've also heard that from different people, again, depending on who you ask, that traditionally or officially that the only ones who are supposed to wear the flower crowns are unmarried women. So is that true according to tradition, or is that another one of those misconceptions? Like
that is true, but
Okay.
except for Jāņi. So you would normally, when a woman gets married, she's not allowed to wear any kind of crown anymore. There's this special headpiece that she's supposed to be wearing. And then in Jāņi, everyone is equal. So that's also one of the magical moments of Jāņi, is that everyone, like no one knows exactly who each other is. So all the women are wearing crowns, no one knows who's married, who's not married, and it doesn't really matter. And that's the only day of the year that married women can wear crowns. Actually, one thing that I forgot to mention, I was talking about the mythological side of it, is that we also are, as Homo sapiens or as humans, kind of recreating the chaos of what there was at the beginning of the world. So that's why there needs to be a lot of singing, a lot of dancing, a lot of different games, a lot of food, and because there's the chaos during the night, and then when the dawn is coming, you're just creating a new world out of the chaos. So that's kind of also the traditional side of it. That's why there's need to be a lot of noise there. Mm-hmm. So that's why I wouldn't really sit quietly by the fire all night.
I think for those of you who listen to this podcast regularly, when we're normally talking about the news, I think we would all agree that we are very good at creating chaos, the chaos at the beginning of the world. But
that's the beginning of it, yeah.
Yeah. So
because that's just the night then all the spirits are mingling with earthly beings, and everyone's just with everyone. Then and something wonderful comes out of it, a new order, you would say.
Okay, well. Austra, I want to hear a little bit about some of your experiences, because you've been here in Latvia much longer than I have, and I'm guessing that you've celebrated a few Jāņis here and there. So what has your experience with Jāņi been? So is it something that you've always celebrated with your family? Have you done it with friends sometimes? Have you done it maybe in some other places? I know that you're involved in a lot of different organizations, different cultural organizations. So what are some of your experiences with Jāņi? Both kind of what was it like growing up, and then also what have been some of your recent experiences with Jāņi?
We've always celebrated Jāņi, although it was a lot different when I was a kid. For my parents did grow up in the Soviet times, and it wasn't really allowed to celebrate Jāņi, so they kind of, my mother just at some point when I was like 3 years old or something, decided that she wants to celebrate it more traditionally, and she started learning and reading and meeting with people, so she would gain all the knowledge as it would be celebrated traditionally. So she just learned it pretty much on her own, because her family didn't put that much effort into celebrating Jāņi, as they weren't able to.
Was that all through Soviet times? Because I've seen, like, for example, one of Latvia's most famous films, I'm going to say it wrong. I'm sorry, Otto, who's listening from America right now. But Limousines...
Jāņa Nakts Krāsās?
Yeah, Jāņa Nakts Krāsās. Because in that movie, I see, and that's in the late 70s, isn't it, or early 80s? And they're
that's
celebrating.
The early 80s. It's different. It already had been gotten a bit softer.
Okay.
The political side of it.
So
it was just, there wasn't that big of an effort to celebrate traditionally. I think there were some kind of traditions that the Soviet government put on.
Yeah.
So, to create everyone's happy and everyone is...
to kind of placate people, but it wasn't what you would think of as like the true traditional Jāņi. Anyway, so when you're growing up, you started celebrating a more traditional Jāņi kind of as you got older, as your mom looked into more of the traditions. So then how did that start changing then exactly?
Well, just when I was very little, we would always make flower crowns and make fire, but it just kind of grew from there, because then we found the hill that we can make the fire on. We learned more and more songs. Then we started making the gates that you need to make out of young birch trees for the sunset and rise, which is 2 different gates that you would need to make. Just more and more traditions came in, and then also me and my sister started getting more into it and finding also more songs and more things that we could do. It just kind of happened naturally. It was never really forced. I have never celebrated Jāņi outside of my home. It's kind of a law that you're not allowed to do that. which my sister is going to break this year because she's going to Canada's Song and Dance Festival, so she's going to be there already. So that's going to be a bit sad.
Okay. Is she going to Skype into Jāņi, or
there's Tervete in Canada.
Is there
Canada.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually a place, Canada, like the Latvians that live in Canada named it a very long time ago.
Tervete, yeah.
Yeah.
Gozemgale, yeah.
There's a really big community over there. But yeah, I have never celebrated that outside of my home.
So speaking of that community, because some of you who are listening right now might be from that community that we're talking about, and that is the community of Latvians abroad, or Latvia's trimda, as we say in Latvian. Now, there's obviously hundreds of thousands of Latvians who either have left in more recent times, or also because of Soviet times, or even before that. I know that you've been involved in some organizations, with culture with Latvia's trimda. What have you found about how Jāņi has been celebrated outside of Latvia? Because I know that it is celebrated outside of Latvia, but what have you heard from some of the people who do celebrate Jāņi outside of Latvia? Do you think that there, might be kind of even more of a adherence to some kind of tradition or something like that, or what have you found?
So in the recent years, I have got to know a lot of Latvian Americans and Latvian Canadians that are mostly the children of those who had to leave when the Second World War started. So they are Latvians, but they have been living there for 3 generations, or maybe even more. And actually what I've found is that usually they are more knowledgeable about Latvian folk songs, and they know a completely different type of folk songs and about traditions than the normal Latvian who lives in Latvia does. I'm really impressed by them, really. They know a lot of traditions, and they do it more actively, I think, even sometimes than we do.
Yeah, it's interesting for me because, I think that's also part of, like, now that I've come to Latvia, I take Thanksgiving a lot more seriously. I do some of the old kind of traditional Thanksgiving things that, like, we never did in America, really, like actually going around the table and saying thanks to everybody, for example. So I think that can kind of happen. So have you ever thought about trying to, see what Jāņi is like outside the country, or you really will just always do it with your family and not break tradition?
For now, I'm not really longing to celebrate Jāņi outside, because for me, I just get the energy that I need for the rest of the year. It's weird, and you can't really describe it unless you have felt it at least once, because there is something magical that happens there, either if you believe in the kind of mythology or you don't, but there's some kind of, I don't know, spirits or whatever you want to call that. And you just get so much energy from that one evening that you wouldn't get any other day of the year. So there's something magical in it, and I don't really think I would feel full if I didn't celebrate it with my family.
Yeah, well, I definitely tend to kind of agree with you, because I have celebrated Jāņi. Again, we don't do it the most traditional ways when I do it with my friends.
You'll get there.
Yeah, well, maybe this year I actually told them, okay, this year we're going to do some of the more of the tradition. So I've been doing a little bit of reading. Here's a question though. So Midsummer throughout Europe used to be a big celebration pretty much everywhere, because in England they had St. John's Day, and kind of all throughout the continent there was some kind of bigger Midsummer festival. Why do you think that here in Latvia we have stuck with this tradition more than in other places? Because even, for example, every year at our Jāņi celebration, we have some people from Lithuania who they're always so impressed. They always come to Latvia because they say, like, oh yeah, down in Lithuania, we barely do anything. And, I mean, like, again, our Jāņi isn't anything to shake a stick at. You'd probably go here and, shake your head. But why do you think here in Latvia, what's special about Latvia that we kind of kept this?
It actually has been said that our tradition might be the one that is the least affected by Christianity. Mm-hmm. And it's the least affected by any other religion. So there's something definitely to do with that. I don't know, maybe we just didn't accept other religions, really, just like superficially. But we also, Latvians, we weren't called Latvians, but like Zemgali were the last ones to still be standing during the Crusades. But yeah, I don't know. It's really magical that it has happened that way. I mean, even the fact that we have our own language is also kind of... Oh, but also there's an interesting thing because of our location geographically. We are, like, the tradition is kind of mixed between the Baltics and Suomugro.
Oh, the like the Finnic-Uralic group. Yeah.
Because that came from Līvi, which was a tribe that lived here that has... sadly died out. There's only a couple of people that still know how to speak the language. And actually Līgo, the word comes from their language and it means laituop, which would be translated as something like let it be or let it happen. So, and that's why we always say that word at the end of all the songs. And for example, Lithuanians who are very close to us, they don't say that word because they're not part of that cultural background.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't aware, Austra is talking about what we call in English, which is confusing because it means something completely different in Latvian, is we call in English the Livonian language, like Liebiešu valoda, we call Livonian language in English. And
it means completely something
different. Yeah, because Livonian means something very different in Latvian, which is why you always have to be careful. But yeah, so this was in Kurzeme, kind of the western region, northwestern region really, and then also kind of north of Riga as well. Yeah, so this is a language group and also a culture that's more kind of similar to Estonian, which, like you mentioned, there has been a lot of cultural inheritance, I guess, from that culture as well. Like one of Latvia's most famous songs, Put Vēni, was originally from Livonian, from what I understand.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of cultural influence that has come from there. So we're just a mixture of both of them.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if that has some kind of effect. But actually, speaking of songs, I wanted to ask this a little bit earlier. So there's lots and lots of songs, Līgo Jāņi. One year I was actually out, this was actually just a couple days before I proposed to my wife, I remember. I was out in Turaida, and this wasn't, the 23rd Jāņi, this was the 21st to 22nd, which was actually the longest day of the year that year.
But actually it stands still for 3 days, so it's not really wrong. Although this year, it's not going to be the longest day anymore.
Okay, well...
It just depends on the sun anyways.
So we're already on the short side again. But anyway, I was out there this one year, and they did all of the traditions. They had, if you ever get a chance to go out there, I don't know, by the time you're listening to it, might be too late, but they have like this wheel of fire rolling down the hill. They had the archers who were shooting arrows into the poles of fire, and but I was just so impressed by how many songs, not only that there were, but the people could possibly remember. And I was asking my wife, like, how do you remember this? So she's like, well, I don't know, most of these songs, and there's people who do this, but when it comes to these songs for Līgo, is there kind of this pre-existing collection of songs that people draw from, or do people also make new songs that can be added as well? Do people take melodies and then add their own lyrics? Like how does singing with Līgo and Jāņi work?
So actually, there are just melodies, and then there are the dainas, the folk songs, the lyrics, which is 4 lines usually, and then they just mix and match. I think if you learn the right rhythm, you can make some adjustments, especially in Līgo, because you're singing about the things that are happening around. So if there's no horses, you're not going to think about horses because there aren't any. But there are a lot of songs and a lot of people who know them. Not all of them, of course, because have you seen the books?
Yes, I have.
That are written down? But I know it's even so for me that when someone starts singing, and even if I didn't think I know the song, I just know the rhythm in which they are being made, so I just know automatically what's gonna follow the next line. I just have something that in time happens intuitively.
And luckily, a lot of the songs, not just for Līgo and Jāņi, but also for Latvia in general, are also call and response. So even if you don't know the song, you can just kind of listen. So that's how for example, our school's hymn, which you went to as well. I always
4 times the same line.
Well, I always forget like past the first line. So I'm like, okay, thank goodness. Like I hear, So actually, Alina's mom also worked at the school, and she also, would kind of always lead everyone in the song. So, I'd always wait for her and then be like, oh yeah, that's how it goes. So that's always nice as well.
Actually, interesting fact. I believe that the oldest song that has been written down, like officially written down, not just given from mouth to mouth, is written in 1770 or something like that.
Really?
So 1700s, yeah.
Oh,
It's a very beautiful song. Not going to sing it now because you need a lot of people to do it. But
I'm sure you probably do. So, going back to you for a minute. So how so you grew up, doing Jāņi and you grew up with some of these traditions. When did you start getting kind of more involved in Latvia's cultural traditions? Because you've devoted a big portion of your life to it already, and in terms of the singing that you've done, in terms of...
I'm not sure. When you say devoted, it seems like kind of a job, but it's just it's just part of a life, like my rhythm, my life as a whole.
Well, you've just confirmed what I just said now. So... But when I guess, okay, so when did you decide it was part of your rhythm? When did you decide that this was, or when did you, I guess not decide because you never decide something like that, but when did you start feeling that this was part of your rhythm and this was something that you wanted to spend?
I guess I started doing it more consciously when I got in high school. Mm-hmm. I mean, I knew a lot of folk songs before, and I've been playing kuokli, the traditional Latvian instrument, since the 3rd grade, which I didn't love back then, but now I love it. Mm-hmm. Maybe because there's a lot of those kind of simple songs that you teach in school, which is usually like 10 songs out of folk songs. There's millions of them. And then when I started learning more about it, I found out that there's a lot more interesting melodies and ideas behind them. And there's so many songs that a lot of people don't know about, or actually no one knows about, because they're just something in the archives somewhere. So when I started learning more about that, and then I met people my own age that were interested in it, it just kind of happened that you just get interested in it also.
And you're also involved, if I understand, in some teaching as well, because you've also done some of these, I guess the correct translation is like 2x2 or divi like camps, which are involved in folk traditions. What has it been like? Not just learning all of what you've learned, but also teaching it to people as well. What has that experience been like?
Well, I'm mostly involved with them that in a way that I help them with graphic design and everything like that. But last summer, I, along with my sister, I was just helping her. We did do a class for 10 days in Latvian folklore, which was mostly for people that came from abroad that don't know that much about tradition, but also for Latvians aged 18 to 30. I just get more clarity when I need to talk about it to other people, because usually it just happens. You just don't think about it much. But then when you need to explain it to someone, that's when you actually understand what you mean and what does it mean to you. I don't know. It's been great. I would love to do it more.
That's right. Do you plan on doing it anymore in the future, or I don't know? Has that, because some people try teaching a little bit, they realize, oh, that was interesting. Never going to do it again. But
no, I actually really loved it. If somebody asked me, I would say, okay. I would actually agree on doing it.
Well, if anyone out there is looking for a folklore teacher, you can ask Austra after this podcast. So, a lot of people who are listening to this right now, maybe they've been living in Riga or maybe other parts of Latvia for some time, and they haven't had somebody to celebrate Līgo Jāņi with, and maybe they would like to try for the first time. How would you suggest them to celebrate? Because is there a way to get invited to Līgo Jāņi, or? Well,
there's no official Facebook group, if that's what you're asking.
But is it okay to ask your colleague, hey, I was wondering?
It is okay. There's always a lot of friends that come to our home because actually I think that the more the merrier, especially in this celebration. If Christmas is maybe more like a family thing, this is just a big celebration. That the more the merrier. There are some official events that are happening. I have never been to one, so I have no idea if they're good or not. But I would say that if you have a couple of friends, to just try and start making a tradition on your own, if you don't have any kind of family that you can join or friends. Because, as I said, there's a lot of improvisation that you can do within the tradition. And it's actually, what I found is that it's not that the celebration itself, like when the sun sets, that's where you get the most joy of. You actually have the most joy just from getting ready and getting everything prepared and thinking how you're going to do it and searching songs and everything. So I think if you want to really experience Jāņi, you just have to kind of get into it and not just go somewhere and expect that someone's going to do it for you. I know it's a horrible advice, but
no, that's good. I mean, it's true about being active about anything. Like the more active you are in preparing for something, then the more accomplished you feel. I have been now. I felt very bad about doing this at the time, but I think 2 years ago, my wife and we were getting married just a couple days after Jāņi. And
that's a silly decision.
Well, yeah, but there was a lot of reasons why. But anyway, so we're going to, we're thinking about going out to our friends as we usually do, but then we were thinking like, oh, we're going to be exhausted. And, my family was coming from America just a couple days later. So we decided, okay, we're just not going to do it. So we lived in Riga at the time, and we decided, okay, let's go to the thing on the Crossmall. Let's just see what it is. And if it's not great, there's also the kind of more traditional thing in Iljuciums, which is a region kind of on the other side of the river for those of you who don't know. And we went, and I have to say that was the most impressive city event I've ever been to in my entire life. And what I loved about it, yes, on the Crossmall. And what I loved about it was that, first of all, there was just so many things to do. They had this huge Donchu stage where, they did the traditional dances, if you're interested in that. They had a tent of all just Līgo Schlager. They had like the big tent where they had like Labeligas tips and, it wasn't Dons, it was Inters Busalis. They had just so much stuff to do. But not just that, the food was very, very reasonably priced. It was the most reasonably priced shashlik I've ever seen at any city event ever, and same with the beer and everything. And the best thing was that across the entire Crossmall, they set up these little grilling pits and these little fireplaces where you could bring your own meat. So you could just go to the store. Exactly, because what I loved about that is that it really felt like, Līgo Jāņi, where, okay, you're not on the countryside, but you're not just buying something, you're grilling it yourself. And if I'd known that, I definitely would have done that. So I don't know if it's still like that. That was 2 years ago. But if you have absolutely nowhere to go and you're listening to this right now and, you don't have colleagues or friends that you can bug, definitely go give it a try. I don't know what it's going to be like this year, but I was very impressed by that. Out of any city festival I've been to my entire life, anywhere in the world, I was quite impressed by that. But
yeah, I have some friends that are in the most known folk groups, and they themselves a lot of times celebrate Jāņi in the 21st. So on the 23rd they can be on those big events and perform. So they definitely should be good because there are people who actually know what they're doing. I
don't know about all of them. I've just been to that one.
Some of them.
But yeah. I mean, almost every single city in Latvia has some kind of thing going on the 23rd and the 21st, 23rd, 24th, but also the 21st and the 22nd. Usually there's something going on too. So Austra also came here with a book of songs, and I think that she is going to sing one of them for us right now. Is that the case?
You can't really have Jāņa without singing.
That's very true. So let's hand it over to Austra and hear, I guess, some Jāņi music.
Izstaigāju mežus, Līgo, Muldur Jāņi meklējoti Līgo. Līgo, Muldur Jāņi meklējoti Līgo. Muldur Jānis paslēpies Līgo, zem sudraba čakarnīša Līgo. Līgo, zem sudraba čakarnīša Līgo. Izstaigāju pļavas Līgo, Muldur Jāni meklējoti Līgo. Līgo, Muldur Jāni meklējoti Līgo. Kad atradu Muldur Jāni Līgo, tad saviju vainagdziņu Līgo. Līgo, tad saviju vainagdziņu Līgo. Visa zeme zālē zieda Līgo. Muldur Jānis neziedēja Līgo. Muldur Jānis neziedēja Līgo. Tas ziedēja kalniņā Līgo. Sidrabiņa ziediņiem Līgo. Sidrabiņa ziediņiem Līgo.
Wow, that was quite a beautiful song. And what exactly was that song about?
It is believed that the herbs and the flowers have the most healing power during Jāņi, those 2 or 3 days. So this is a song about one of them that's believed to be most strong remedy for a lot of disease and everything. And it was said that you have to put a lot of these herbs, healing ones, into your flower crown, so it would give you good health and everything.
And was this a song that you learned when you were growing up, or one of the songs that you learned more kind of recently?
I do not remember. But I think it was the first time recorded by Ilga Reizniece.
She's the one from Ilgi? Yeah. Ilgi. How do you pronounce that properly? Ilgi. Okay, Ilgi. So
it's a hard one. I will
know.
give it to you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, because I don't know. I'm sure Otto's listening right now and cringing, listening to me try to pronounce things. So.
I can just tell for the girls listening that there's some way that you can do some fortune telling usually for love and husbands and stuff like that. So one of them is that during the night you need to take your flower crown and turn backwards to an apple tree. So you're back to an apple tree and you have to throw the flower crown over your shoulder, and the flower crown needs to get stuck in the branches. Mm-hmm. So if you get stuck in the first time, it means that you're gonna get married the next year, and so on. If you get stuck in the tree in the 5th time, that means you're gonna get married in 5 years. So that's one thing you can do. And another thing that I usually do, but I forget about it when I wake up, is that you need to put your flower crown under your pillow when you go to bed in the morning, and then you're gonna dream of your husband.
Really?
Yeah. You're supposed to see your husband in your dream.
Has that ever worked?
Actually, I remember waking up and thinking that I saw him, but then I just forget about it. Like I forget the face, but I just know that I have seen someone. So I don't know. Maybe when I meet him, I will know. Just
you're out there. You're gonna be like, "Hey, you're
the one guy from
you're Jānis."
Yeah. And that will probably be Jānis, because most of the guys in Latvia are named that.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a pretty good, whenever...
pretty good chance.
Yeah, but, I mean, I'm not even kidding. Whenever I've had a lot of students at the university who I saw them once a week, and, like they were for like one semester. So there's very few, and I'm just bad with names in general. Very, very bad with names in general. So, I can probably usually either guess either Jānis or Martinch, or like maybe Rihards or something. And, like once in a while, I'm actually kind of like, oh yeah, Jānis, right? Yeah. So that always kind of works.
Yeah. So if you forget Latvian's name, just try Jānis.
For girls, it doesn't work so well because...
no, there's too many.
Well, yeah, my wife is Līgo. She had like 3 or 4 Līgas in her class, but I think your class, you had 1 Līga.
Yeah. And
then there just haven't really been a whole lot recently. Now there's lots of Esther. My daughter's Esther, and I think that was the most common name that year, but it changes more commonly.
So
I think.
She's the only Esther I know.
Yeah. Oh no, she's I think in the day that she was born, we told the nurse that she was going to be named Esther, and she said, "Oh, that was just another Esther across the hall." I was like, great, But then again, I'm Joe, average Joe. So, now I do have to ask this because otherwise somebody is going to comment and say like, "Why didn't you ask about?" So I do have to just ask. So, one thing that at least foreigners we hear a lot is that there's the Latvian tradition of the fern flower on Līgo, and that people will say, "Oh, we're going into the forest to look for quote unquote the fern flower," and then they're going off to do something different, which you can look it up if you're listening at home. Now I have to ask, have you ever actually heard of anyone actually saying like, "We're looking for the fern flower"? Is that just one of these kind of like Jāņi urban legends, or?
Well, that's one story of it, which I guess we're not going to talk about, but someone can Google it. But it is connected with like just it being a feast of fertility and everything. But also, when I was a kid, there was this story that you need to go and look for it because it only blooms during the night.
Yeah.
And if you find it, then you're going to have all the fortune and all the happiness in the world. And if you go and... so you're not supposed to be looking back.
Okay.
It's said that there are going to be a lot of monsters and bad spirits and witches and everything behind you.
Yeah.
And if you look back, then they're going to get to you and you're just going to be, gone. And so you're not allowed to look back. But if you pull through and go, you can get the flower and be the most happiest person alive. So, yeah. that was just, I was scared always as a kid. I always thought that I was gonna get I don't know. So that's a different kind of story, that my parents told me.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Yeah. No, I've never heard that. There's so many different layers of this. So, anyway, I think we've pretty much covered almost everything. I guess. Is there anything that you think we've missed?
There's definitely a lot of layers and traditions that I haven't mentioned. So I'm sorry for all the people that actually know about the traditions. That maybe I'm not the most knowledgeable person in the field. But I guess we get the gist of it.
Mm-hmm. And if we forgot something, we'll probably have you back next year for the next Līgo.
Maybe I will have learned Jāņi, something more by then.
So before we go, any, I guess, Līgo Jāņi wishes for people out there who might be listening? Any I don't know, any words of greetings or anything you can say before we finish?
I would say that just to go into the celebration full-heartedly,
mm-hmm.
and try to feel kind of the connection that a person can have with the universe and the earth and everything. Because, I think there's also something powerful in the fact that everyone at the same time, all over Latvia, are lighting a fire. And I think you can really feel that there's the energy around.
Yeah, I mean, I just love it. I think I've been to 3 kind of countryside Jāņis, and it really is something really, really special. So I hope all of you guys out there get to experience that. The one last thing I do have to say, though, unfortunately, is please be very safe when you're driving out there. There are insane people who are driving on Līgo and Jāņi, and every year there's different statistics. So please just be careful about that. That's my kind of like dad. I became a dad this year, so now I have to. Be, I don't know,
responsible.
Yeah, exactly. So
well, a good way to get around this is to just celebrate for like 6 days straight. It works for us.
That's what a lot of people do. I mean, if you're thinking about like, oh, I should get home, but I don't know. No, just stay. I mean, like going into work on Tuesday, like no one's going to be there. No one does anything the day after Līgo Jāņi. So anyway, thank you so much, Austra, for being here.
It was nice being here.
Yes, and thank you for telling us about your experiences and your and about all the different traditions. So for those of you who are listening for your first time, thank you for listening to this episode. We will be back to talk about the news in just a couple days and any of the things that might have happened over Līgo Jāņi. Usually it's kind of a slow news week, but there's usually always something. And again, have a wonderful, safe, and exciting Līgo. So, visu labu visiem!